Problem 2A says 1 3/4. So there's my 1 3/4 plus 1 1/3. Let's take the 2 and kind of set them off to the side a little bit. We won't forget about them. But I know our answer is 2 plus all of these. Well, what is, all of this equal to? Well, we have fourths and we have thirds. We can't leave this with different units. So we need to find the right size block that will cover all of these fourths and that third together. And so fourths and thirds, you would end up using 12ths. My set of fraction circles does not have 12ths. We're going to have to use our imagination here. So if I covered these with 12ths and these with 12ths, I can borrow some of these 12ths to fit in here. And so let's figure that out. Well, if I have fourths to come up with 12ths, I'd have to divide these into 3 equal pieces. So I'd have 3 here, 3 more, and 3 more makes 9. And then I would need to borrow 3 from here to fill in the circle. Well, if these are thirds, I would be able to put 4 of these 12ths on top to equal a third. So I'm going to take 3 of them and put them in here. So then I would have another whole. So I'm going to replace this, and 3 of the 12ths from here I'm going to put in here. But then I still have 1 of the 12ths left over. So my answer would be 3 and then 1 of the 12ths. Part B says we have 1 1/4 plus 5/8. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. Okay, so 1 1/4 plus 5/8. We need to come up with like a common unit, a common shape here. Well, we have 8ths and 4ths, but if we look at this, we can put 2 of these 8ths on top of a 4th, and so we can replace our 4th with 2 8ths. Well, if we put these together, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our answer would be 1 7/8. Part C, we're going to talk about subtraction. We have 2 2/3. We want to take away 5/6. Well, we don't have any 6 here to take away. So let's replace some of the blocks, and you could either use the thirds or the whole. But I'll replace the whole with 6 6. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we still have 1, 2, and 2/3. So we haven't changed anything yet. But now we have 6. So we can take away 5 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's my takeaway pile. So my answer is all this. What is all that? It's 1 and then this much more. Well, how much is that much more? Well, we need to end up with the same size block. And so what I can do is try and find something that matches up. And wow, 2 of these 6 is the same thing as a third, so I can swap that out. And then I can do that again. So these two 6 will equal 1/3, so I can replace that. And so I end up with my answer being 1 and 5/6. D says 2 and 1/6, and we want to take away 1 and 1/4. Well, I can take away the 1, so this is my takeaway pile, but I still need to take away another 1/4. Well, this is what I have left, so what I can do is replace this whole with 4/4. So here's my 4/4 that I'm going to swap that out for. Okay, so I've taken away 1. I need to take away another 1/4. So there's my 1 and 1/4 that I've taken away. And here's my answer. Well, it's 3/4 plus a 6. We need to come up with blocks that we can cover all this with the same size block. Well, 4ths and 6ths, we're going to end up using our 12ths. Well, we would have 2 covering this block, 3 covering this one, 3 covering this one, and 3 covering this one. And so we'd have 3, 6, 9, 11, 12ths. In other words, we're missing 1/12. So our answer would be 11/12. Problem 3 talks about multiplication. And so what we can do is use our little fraction squares to represent our multiplication of fractions. And so we have 1/4 times 1/3. So I want to fold this into 4ths. So I folded that in half and half again. Okay. And this time we want 1/4 of a row. So, if this is 1 by 1, each one of these rows would be 1/4 of a row. So there's 1/4 of a row. So it's 1/4 times 2/3. So we want to fold this into thirds. And I pre-folded it so it'd be a little bit easier. Okay, so now that's into thirds. And we want 1/4 of a row, and each row being 2/3 in size. So we want 2/3. Well, so our answer is 2 of these pieces. And let's see how many pieces make a whole. Well, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so our answer would be 2/12, which is the same thing as 1/6. The next problem says 1 and 1/2 times 3/4. 1 and 1/2 means we have 1 1/2 groups times 3/4. So each group has size 3/4. So we want 1 1/2 groups of size 3/4. So there's one group of 3/4, but now we want 1/2 of a group. Well, if this is one group and we want to cut it in half, we need to replace these fourths with something. And so if we replace them with 8ths, so those two will replace this 4th. These two will replace this 4th. And then these two will replace this 4th. And so there's my 3/4. So there's one group, but now I can split it in half. And so this would be 1/2 a group, this would be 1/2 a group, for a total of one group, but then we need another 1/2 of a group. There's another half of a group. So 1.5 groups of size 3/4. Well, if we put these all together, what do we get? Well, this is the same thing as 1, so I can swap that out for 1 and 1/8. So the answer would be 1 1/8. Let's take a look at 3C, which says 2 1/4 divided by 3/8. Well, remember division has two different types. The first type is how many groups, and the second type is how many are in each group. Well, it would be really hard to take this 2 1/4 and divide it into a group of size 3/8. What we want to do is create groups of size 3/8. The answer would be how many groups do we end up with? So what we want to do is divide this into 8s so we can create groups of size 3/8. So I'm going to take this 1 and replace it with 8/8. And then I'm going to replace this one with 8/8. Well, unfortunately, I don't have enough 8s. So I'm going to think of this orange one as an 8. And orange is close to red, right? But then I also have this 1/4. So I'm going to replace the 1/4 with 2 8s. And we're going to pretend those are 8s as well. So now that we have all 8s, we're going to divide this into groups of size 3/8. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, there's one group. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, there's a second group. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, there's another group. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, there's another group. 1, 2, 3, there's another one. And we have 3 left over. So we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups. So our answer would be 6. Let's talk about part D. It says we have 2 2/3. And we want to divide that by 5/6. Well, once again, we could either divide this into 5/6 of a group, which might be a little difficult. So what we're going to do is divide this into groups of size 5/6, and then the answer will be how many groups do we have. So we need 6 in order to divide this into groups of size 5/6. So I'm going to take this one and replace it with 6/6. And then I'm going to take this one and replace it with 5/6. And then I need to replace these thirds with 6. Well, I've run out of my 6 fraction circles, so I'm going to replace them with these red ones and just pretend that they're 6. And then we can see that 2/6 is the same thing as 1/3. So that's why I'm replacing them with 2 of the 6. And same thing here. I can replace this 1/3 with 2 of the 6. Okay, so now that we have all 6, we can start creating our groups of size 5/6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's another group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's another group. Well, we have 3 groups, but 1 left over. Well, it takes 5 of these to create one group, and we only have 1. So this is 1 out of 5 needed. So this would be 1/5 of a group. So our answer would be 3 1/5. Please take a look at the additional practice problems and then come back and watch the next video.